Well, we have seen the updates fairly often in the media here in Battle Creek talking about what is apparently a heroin overdose problem, which, of course, signals an addiction problem in general. And we thought we'd check in on that situation today. The Battle Creek Police Chief is here, Jim Blocker. Good morning.
Good morning, Richard. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. And Jeannie Goodrich is here, too, Chief Executive at Summit Pointe. Good morning.
Good morning, Richard.
Thanks for your time today. How were the roads out there on your way in?
They really weren't too bad.
Good.
I think the road crews have been working most of the night, and they've done a fantastic job to get the roads ready, at least the main arterial roadways, as well as some of the minor ones.
All right, so you haven't been advised of excessive calls to assist in crash situations or anything like this?
Well, we're always out there working.
Yeah.
On mornings like this, but certainly things aren't as bad as they could be.
Okay, good. So the heroin issue is one which we've discussed before. The notion that we apparently have quite a problem as it relates to that, and in particular overdoses connected to that, and there's some thoughts about that. We've talked with Jeannie before about the notion that Summit Pointe wants to step up to try and help as they can with this, and so today is an opportunity to get an update on all of that. But since we've talked about this, Chief, the story has come to the surface again about a number of heroin-related overdoses. This is still going on, isn't it?
It is. You know, lately we've been seeing more and more articles and journal publications being written that they're describing this problem now as an epidemic. And I think it's becoming our local reality, too, which is unlike the reality nationwide. Year to date, since last January, we're already at 114 overdoses, and that is just in the greater Battle Creek area, and 16 deaths. What's sad and what's really important to point out now is that here we are, January 2016, and we already have 4 deaths and 7 overdoses. Pretty phenomenal considering we're not even halfway through the month.
Oh, my goodness. That's incredible. And as you've said, this is not in concert with national statistics. Is that true?
I think we are a good representation of what pockets of communities across the country are facing. No, I don't believe we're unique in that regard. I think from Pennsylvania to Oregon and all points in between, communities similar to ours, this is what we're starting to see more and more. And that's why it's being described nationally as an epidemic.
Right, a word that is a pretty strong word, but when you're talking about numbers like that, boy, maybe that's the right word.
That's right. So, again, this morning we want to talk about what the problem is, but locally we've also want to talk about how partners have gotten together to address this issue in a progressive way.
And that's the point. We'll see an update and hear an update on that here shortly on WBCK. Chief Jim Blocker, Battle Creek Police, and Jeannie Goodrich with Summit Pointe with us today as we get updated on what has now been described as a heroin epidemic in our region. Let's just try and understand the dynamics of this a little bit if we can. So heroin is what? Cheap and easy to get? Is that what plays into this?
I think that is one of the significant drivers of why it is out there. But also another driver, and there's multiple drivers, but I think that there's been a market created because of it. It's out there. It's easy to get. That's one reason. 2, I think we've got a nation that's been overprescribed painkillers, and so there's sort of this need for this ongoing and continuous painkiller that people have. And again, one of the challenges with the deadliness and the overdose concern that we have is that because there's so much of it out there, it's being cut with things that are different that we didn't see 10, 15 years ago, like fentanyl and carfentanil.
Well, and that's what I was about to ask about that component of this, too. I'm getting to you, Jeannie, honest. I promise.
Okay.
So the added wrinkle in all of this is that some of these doses of heroin that people have bought have been laced with other things that have accentuated the risk.
That's right. The deadly ingredient is that fentanyl, carfentanil. The DEA indicated that fentanyl is 25 to 50 times more potent than heroin, packs of 50 to 100 times more punch than morphine. It can be easily manufactured. And what we're seeing is we're getting manufactured fentanyl and carfentanil that more than likely intelligence sources suggest is being made in China or in the Asian Pacific region, and it's being mixed and cut with heroin that we see in the markets here in the Midwest.
So if I'm a heroin dealer, why do I want to take that risk at losing my customer base by lacing it with something deadly like that?
I think that's a phenomenal question. I think some of it is because the profitability, you can make the little bit that you get go a much longer way because the market demands it. And, we have a society right now that is looking for escape through other means, and whether it's through marijuana or whether it's through other drugs, and I think that is a significant challenge that we as a society are having to face. We've said many times before, and this is really where Summit Pointe, so many others come in, is that we cannot arrest our way out of this problem.
Right, and the solution would seemingly be better access to treatment. Is that true, Jeannie?
Well, it's not just treatment. So the road to recovery for these individuals can be multifaceted. So it can be treatment, it can be the local support groups, it can be natural support. So any intervention that helps break the cycle is what our intention is.
Well, in the past, when we've talked with Chief Blocker about this, he said we need to up this game, this recovery access game, and subsequent to that, Summit Pointe, you were here, and you said we're working on that. Where are we now?
Sure, I do agree with Chief. The access is the key component. So when somebody wants the help, you have to be able to deliver that help or that intervention immediately. So we did last fall, through a grant with the Battle Creek Community Foundation, obtain a building, and we have been since last fall going through the challenges of getting a building licensed, and because we will be having people there, consumers there 24 hours a day, we have some other additional challenges with regard to changing code compliance and pieces like that. So we've had to install sprinklers and pieces along the same lines as working with our community partners in developing protocols and how to access recovery centers. So while we had a building, as I had talked at the last time, having a building is just one component. It's the planning behind it. So getting the building ready, getting the protocols ready, working with our community partners. All of those components together are in the works.
And these are normal hoops to jump through in these cases.
That's correct. Yes.
Just so happens this is an urgent issue, but this solution is on the way.
It is on the way.
So, Chief, what happens now when someone is arrested, let's say, and they decide they want to find a recovery path without this option yet ready? What's the typical path at that point?
Well, really, over the last year, we've had several different strategies that we've employed. One is simply we treat it as a medical. We get them to the Bronson, we get them treated, and then from there we significantly hope that they take some sort of viable option out of this lifestyle. However, what we're finding is that we've had multiple folks that we've had to, when I say Narcan, we've had to give them Narcan, which incidentally is something 18 months ago we never carried. Now we have to. It's part of our tool belt because we use it so much. What we're doing now is we're finding people, we've had to Narcan them 6 times. One person, less than 48 hours, we had to Narcan them 3 different times. One person we Narcaned on a Friday, on a Sunday evening we did it again in the middle of an intersection. So when we find that these options aren't being taken, they're not getting, you have to want to get through this problem. Right. You're going to have to, as a person, an individual, recognize I have a problem and I need to get help. And so then we move to not charging folks to suddenly saying, well, we're going to start charging. And the intent behind the charge, it was not to build up an arrest record, but literally was an intervention strategy to force them into drug court, to try to get them that intervention that they needed. But now we find that a new House bill has been put into law effective this month, and that's no longer an option. So again, we're struggling with what are the street level options out there. We realize that there's a lot of frustration about what are the appropriate tactics to use and how to use them, but we all really do have the same goal in mind, and that is to try to get people out of this and into something more productive so they can go on with their lives.
This is testimony to the strength of addiction, isn't it, Jeannie?
Yes, it is. And this is something that Summit Pointe has seen. So in addition to our recovery center, we also do provide outpatient services. And the sheer volume coming in the door every day to our groups and accessing our services has just been phenomenal. I mean, it's surprised me. And so while Chief talks about this epidemic, we're reaching so many more consumers through our interventions and through our treatment. And
this is indicative of folks who are ready to say, as Chief pointed out, you got to be at that point where you say, okay, I got to get out of this in a healthy way, or I'm getting out of it another way. They're ready, is what you're saying.
Right. So the folks that we see are generally ready for the treatment. We also offer recovery coaches, and recovery coaches are consumers who have walked that journey and who can help the consumers who are in some phase of wanting to get that treatment, and helping them see that there is an opportunity for recovery.
We're here with Chief Jim Blocker and Jeannie Goodrich talking about the heroin, what is now being called heroin epidemic, here in the Battle Creek region. WBCK Chief Jim Blocker, Battle Creek Police, and Jeannie Goodrich from Summit Pointe are here. So as you work on this new building, this recovery center, and the Battle Creek Police and other authorities, I presume, highly anticipate that. What is the process that you envision once it's open?
So like we looked at the engagement center in Washtenaw County, we will be available for not only folks who are consumers who can walk in, but also for access after an ER visit. So we'll be working closely with Bronson, and have that be an opportunity for someone after an ER visit to come and visit with our recovery coaches and to set up that next appointment. And will be an option for the law enforcement to be able to drop consumers off who are known to us. The only consumers that we will not be able to assist are those with a seizure disorder. And so those consumers need to stay at the ER or have their services accessed through the ER.
So obviously this process, Chief, then is one with a lot of stakeholders who've already figured out what the dance steps are here.
That's right. There are a lot of partners. Certainly the Battle Creek Fire Department, who is a first responder with us. Our paramedics, Life Care Ambulance Service, again, first responder, also equally in this fight as we move forward to battle this problem. Bronson Health, a significant partner, because as Jeannie just indicated, that's going to be the gateway, certainly if we're treating it as a medical. And then, of course, Summit Pointe, and the work that they've done has been phenomenal. And then some of those backroom partners, the ones that really don't get mentioned because they're not at that operational level, is the Community Foundation and the significant interest that they have in helping us address this significant community problem.
So, Jeannie, what's the timeline? The magic question here. If you could open the door on a certain date, what date would you like that to be?
As of yesterday, we are shooting for March 1st. So we think that we can get through the necessary plans and approval. We received our official license this week from the state of Michigan to operate as a substance abuse facility. So now we're just going through with the sprinkler system and those components. So we have our fingers crossed. We had to kind of identify a date yesterday at our leadership meeting, and that's what we looked at.
Okay, that's about 6 weeks away, roughly?
6 weeks, yes.
Okay, so that licensure process, was that fast-tracked, or was that a usual time frame as far as you know?
So we were fortunate in that we've already have some of our sites licensed. So it was an additional license. So it did fast-track that a tad.
Okay, well, that's helpful then. Well, we'll stay in touch on all of this and really hope that there is not a spike in these statistics more in the meanwhile, while these 6 weeks come quickly, hopefully.
Thank you, Richard.
All right, thanks to the both of you. Chief
Thank you,
Jim
Richard.
Blocker and Jeannie Goodrich with Summit Pointe.